Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome. I know we're having wonderful weather finally, and this is going to be a great interview for wonderful weather for us in Eastern Idaho. So I am happy to have you. And a lot of us are College of Eastern Idaho, but I think in this particular case today, and especially with the topic of a co-enrollment partnership, we may have some press. So if that's the case, I would really encourage any of you who would have questions for President Satterlee to go ahead and key those into the text, and we'll be sure to feed that in for questions either to he or to I. So let's begin, because this is a real treat, President Satterlee. We have known each other for quite some time. Your time in Boise and now as president of Idaho State University. So welcome. Thank you for taking a little bit of time with us in this forum.
Well, thanks, President Aman. I appreciate it. So I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate you letting me have a few minutes to visit today.
You know, this is a real treat, and you and I have talked about this for a while, and I was just contemplating this, being from Oregon, and again, I've had 16, 17 years in community colleges in Oregon, and in College of Western Idaho. So I've got a lot of background with community colleges. I think you and us, Idaho State and College of Eastern Idaho, have a really unique and wonderful partnership, and this is all about students. You and I have talked about this for quite some time, but really the leadoff topic is going to be on this Memorandum of Understanding, this agreement between Idaho State and College of Eastern Idaho to permit students to both co-admit and to co-enroll. You want to reflect for a moment on that, and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I'm so excited about that and what that means for all of our students. And we could look at it one way of saying it's what it does for all of your students and what it does for our students, but the reality is what it does for our students.
Exactly.
Collectively. I mean, that's the whole point here, is being student-centric in our approach. You know, the concept is really pretty simple in its concept. It's a little difficult in execution, but conceptually, it's every student who walks in the door at the College of Eastern Idaho is going to be able to be co-admitted to Idaho State University at the same time. So once they're admitted as a College of Eastern Idaho student, they're also an Idaho State University student. So they can take classes from Idaho State University at the same time, and they enter with full catalog rights.
Right.
Meaning when they enter starting out at College of Eastern Idaho, if there's a program at Idaho State, they have the right to say, I'm going to continue on through that program at the university as if they started at the university that very same day. And that's really key, because what we want to get to is an environment where a student just sees a path to their educational goal. So if their educational goal is a certificate or an associate degree or a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree, we can provide them a path the moment they step in the door at either of our institutions. And, you know, it's like, you know, Rick and I, we've talked about this several times. I envision a time when we get down the road where we eliminate phrases like transfer and articulation agreements and things like that, where we just have a student walks in the door at either of our locations in Idaho Falls, and there's a path to a degree. And this is the first step in doing that. Right now, we have to deal with all of the issues that we're separate institutions and accreditation and registration, et cetera. But this is the first step to get us towards that ultimate goal. And I think that the whole key to it is how great that is for our students.
Yeah, you've got a multitude of topics. We could spend the 45 minutes just on what you opened up with. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with this topic of swirling, but I think in our environment now, with the kind of students we've got, there's a desire for students to swirl within institutions. So
Yes.
being admitted and having catalog rights, as you described, in a couple of institutions is hugely valuable. Our advantage, of course, is cost at $129 a credit. And again, for students in particular that are beginning and maybe mom and dad didn't go to a university and aren't ready for that, we have small classes and those kind of things, which is a great way to get started. But we don't offer baccalaureates. And that, you and I both would agree. And let's just talk about our region, and we'll leave the state out of this. But for our region, you can't even get an interview without a baccalaureate. And again, we're talking about masters and PhDs and research, and this is the place to get started. So let's do this, because I think you and I both agree that we don't have the go-on rate with our high school graduates we should. How do you think this is going to help them?
Well, I think in a couple of ways. One of which is all the students in our region, especially in the Idaho Falls, greater Idaho Falls region, will be able to see that they can have a path towards whatever their degree goals are. And it doesn't matter where they start. And that's the main thing. One of the things about Idaho, and everybody who's watching knows this, Idaho geographically is such a large state, but small population. All of our higher education institutions grew up very distinct from one another. I mean, Boise and Twin Falls used to be a long way apart from one another, which is why you have Boise State and then the College of Southern Idaho. But in modern times, whether it's the 80-mile-an-hour freeway or whether it's the internet and modern technology, our institutions are no longer far apart from one another. I mean, there was a time when Idaho Falls and Pocatello were considered a long way apart from one another, and now it's commuting distance. And so we have to figure out how we work together now. And that's new for us in Idaho. I mean, in larger cities, community colleges and universities have coexisted for a long time. We haven't had that in Idaho. But the opportunity that it provides for students is fantastic. I foresee a day, not too distant in the future, where the College of Eastern Idaho is providing the bulk of, if not all of, the 100, 200 level programming on all of our bachelor's degrees that are happening up in Idaho Falls. I mean, that's good for the student. They pay less for them. They get the education they need. We have two campuses up there now. We have the one that ISU and U of I share, and then we have CEI's campus. We can use them together,
right?
And we can start cross-programming and really provide this this environment where students can get their educational goals met at a cheaper price point and get what they need. And I think that's the thing that's been missing in the Idaho Falls region is there's been the selective programming, or it's been, well, you'll have to transfer, or these are the things you'll have to do. And the more we can eliminate that and make it easier for students, that's the future.
Well, Kevin, that's why it's always so great to talk with you, because I think you are thinking about what could be, not the way things have been. And you would agree at one time, not every gem stamped credit would be accepted by a university. It just didn't happen. But the state board, rightly so, I think, insisted on that. Everyone that we're talking about, all 8 of us are Northwest accredited and abide by the same rules, those kind of things. So the good thing is, if we can have a high school graduate who's accepted with the criteria to be in Idaho State, they automatically are accepted with us because we're open enrollment, and that's the way community colleges work, and that's a wonderful thing. So I think you described a really interesting view of our region, in particular Idaho Falls. Tell us a little bit about University Place and what ISU is doing there, the kind of the programs perhaps, and where do you think that can go, and where do you think we CEI could play a part with those students that are at University Place?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, probably another one we could spend our entire time on, just that, but I'll try and condense it a little bit, because I think there's two or three things probably that sum up that. First is that the other part of the collaboration that we haven't touched on yet, but it's just as important, is the collaboration between the University of Idaho and Idaho State.
Right.
Is that we are now working together and operating in those new collaborative ways. And so what this gives us the ability to do is have all three of us in an environment where we're working together for those educational goals of the student. And so what we're doing at Idaho, at University Place right now with the University of Idaho, as everybody knows, I think we've started up the Polytechnic Institute there. We have finished our faculty hiring in the first round of faculty hiring for that. So we have faculty in several different disciplines all working together, and not in just separate academic departments, but in a single department where they're all working together, designed to meet the high-tech needs of the Idaho Falls economy. So that Polytechnic Institute, as it moves forward, is really designed to serve those needs and provide the broad spectrum of disciplines and expertise to offer multiple degree paths for students, and to do it collaboratively. And as we do that, then we are meeting more of the needs of the lab and the high-tech industry of Idaho Falls, and it's allowing us to focus our university resources more towards those upper division and graduate level programs. Because at the end of the day, we will all, I think, work together better. It'll be better for our students if we can focus the university resources towards those upper division graduate programming, College of Eastern Idaho towards the lower division and core programming, and then provide the pathway. So this is how I've described it in a couple of different forums before. I think it would be fantastic if a student walked in the door at either the University of Idaho, Idaho State, or College of Eastern Idaho in Idaho Falls. Didn't matter which door they walked in. They walk in, they say, I want a degree in X. And all of us say, we can do that, even if it's not one of the ones we offer, but one of our two sister institutions do, and we show them the path. And the path could very much look like this. A new first-time freshman walks in, and they take 100% of their classes from College of Eastern Idaho. Or maybe it's 80% of their classes from CEI and one class from ISU or U of I, and that's their first year program. By the time they get in their second year, they're taking 60% of their classes from CEI and 40% from U of I or ISU. In their third year, it flips, and they're taking 30 or 40% from CEI, and then the rest from ISU or U of I. And then in their fourth, fifth year, they're taking 100%. But to the student, they just saw this was their class schedule. These are the classes on their path. They're not worried about which institution it's coming from. They're just seeing path towards degrees. So one of the things I have asked our academic affairs group to do, and they're working on right now, is based on all of the class offerings we have that ISU offers up there, the U of I offers up there, and working with CEI, for us to produce a list of every single degree a student can get without ever having to leave Idaho Falls. They don't ever have to commute down to Pocatello for a single class. It shows the full degree completion programs we have between the three of us, so that we can then all work together to market those, show students what's available, and create those pathways for them. So we're working on that right now.
See, I think that's hugely innovative and forward thinking. And you bring up a really important component. And as we look through this memorandum of understanding, this idea of comprehensive student support, advising becomes really critical. And you've nailed that. I think you know, but I'll just remind our audience that we have office space at the college for ISU. So this a student doesn't have to drive across Idaho Falls, and we're not that big, but within the college itself, they can walk in and talk to one of your staff and get direct access to degree plans and flows, and that personal connection is there. And again, the home run for us is to get a student to you with as much of that junior year done, and hopefully no debt. You know, if they buy a pickup, we can't help them there. But if they skip the pickup for a while, we can get them to you probably with no debt. We've got a growing ability to give scholarships. So again, those when those foundations are complete, then you can take them any direction they want to go in a baccalaureate, and again, clearly up to a full doctorate program.
Yeah. And I think that's critical. That cost component is critical for our students. You know, the rising cost of higher education is a national problem.
Right.
And it's been an Idaho problem as well. Two things, though, that are important to note. One is, 30 years ago, the state of Idaho spent 15% of its state general fund budget on higher education. That was 30 years ago, it was 15%. If you look at this last year, it was 7.8% of the state's general fund. So there's been a 30-year decline in the percentage of the state's general fund that it spends on higher education. And there has been an exactly commensurate 30-year rise in the tuition in higher education in Idaho. Mm-hmm. It's been cause and effect. That's exactly why it's happened. But we're trying to address that. 2 years ago, Idaho's higher education system had the 8th lowest tuition in the country, which is a positive, by the way. Of the 50 states, we have the 8th lowest tuition 2 years ago. But our colleagues throughout Idaho, the 4-year institutions last year, as I think everybody knows, we all came together and we froze tuition, kept it froze. 1 year of a tuition freeze for us. By doing that, we went from the 8th lowest tuition in the United States to the 6th lowest tuition in the United States, because it went up everywhere else and we held ours the same. If we in Idaho Falls can combine the concept of our students getting their first couple of years at the community college price point and then moving on to the university price point, it's going to save them even more. They'll go from 6th lowest tuition to something much better than that. I don't know what it will be, but it'll be better than that. And I think that's the goal we ought to look towards.
Well, we talk about a radically affordable degree, and you can't do it. The universities can't do it. The overhead is so massive for you that you can't possibly be delivering that first year or the first 2 years at a very affordable price. The other thing that you and I would agree on is we don't want to bleed our high school graduates or anybody to Utah or out of state. We want them to stay, and I think most families, for the most part, want their kids to stay in the region. So I think the kind of ideas we're talking about here make it even more appealing for Idahoans to stay in Idaho and work toward that baccalaureate.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things about that. We need to make sure we're continuing to work on the state's dual enrollment. And use it not just so students get some credit while they're in high school, but they use that to bring down their cost ultimately of degree, speed their degree completion, so that we can start getting those credits in the right place, which means we have to work on more on advising at the high school level so that the credits they're taking in high school are getting them down the road and aren't just extra credits. So that's important. And the second one is, as we are working together on these things, we're going to find those collaborative points that will lead to that type of thing. And the more we do that, and the more we're talking about that from that student-centric mindset, should increase that go-on rate, that students understand, oh, I can be successful. I took a college credit and I'm successful. I can continue that. And if they see that community college price point at the beginning, it makes that easier. And I have this theory, and this is 100% anecdotal, right? I'm not basing this on any data. I'm basing this on just my feeling as a sort of a native Idahoan and my experience and people I've talked to. But in Idaho Falls in particular, in the region, the greater Idaho Falls region, in that part of Idaho, we have our students are almost caught in the middle. The students that want to go away to go to school, to go somewhere, often look at Pocatello, Idaho State, as being, well, it's close. It's not far enough away. And the students who want to stay home for whatever reason or want to stay local haven't had the opportunities in Idaho Falls. And so it's led to students having that difficult choice. If we can tell them, for those of you that want to stay in the Idaho Falls area because of family, work, or reasons, we will provide degree paths for you. We, meaning CEI, ISU, and U of I, we will provide that full degree path for you in Idaho Falls. Then we're going to capture students in a way we haven't been able to before.
There's just so many innovative things that that we're doing together. Let's start with this one, and both of us are part of PLC, President's Leadership Council, and you have been good enough to be the chair of that. And for some reason, you took on a second year, which is beyond me, but we're appreciative of that. You're doing such a wonderful job. But in that realm of dual credit, ISU through Candy Turley Ames, Dr. Ames, has got a really wonderful program. And we, as we started up, look to you because when we do dual credit, we want to be in parallel with what our university is doing. And that requires a master's in discipline for any high school teachers. And a lot don't have that. But you're doing a really innovative program. Kevin, why don't you describe what is going on with ISU? Because we want to show that off and brag about it.
Yeah, it's really good, and we've talked to the state about how we can scale this up statewide. And full credit on this goes to Dr. Candy Turley Ames and her team. She is the dean of our College of Arts and Letters, and is also currently serving as an associate provost for dual enrollment.
Right.
And it's really because of two programs that she has started, and she deserves the credit for. The first one is that we run on-campus dual enrollment at Idaho State, meaning it's not just the students in their high school classroom with their high school faculty who are credentialed to offer college classes, but those high school students come to the university and sit in the university classes with university students as peers, with our faculty teaching, but they're still high school students earning dual enrollment on the campus. That's a great program because the experience for that high school student when they're actually on the campus with their peers that are college students is different. So we're doing that. But the second one, and the one you were talking about, is that for those students that are in the high school and we want them to have the properly credentialed faculty, we at Idaho State offer that the teacher who's teaching a dual enrollment class, a high school teacher teaching a dual enrollment class for Idaho State University, we offer them credits. They can take master's degree courses towards their master's degree, essentially as compensation for teaching those dual enrollment courses for us. So if they're out there teaching, they can then take, for no extra cost, master's courses in their discipline to help them get that credential and be that better instructor and be that better teacher. And that's the program we started, and we're now pitching to the state to take statewide.
There's no reason for all of us not to do it. And we have worked closely with Dr. Turley Ames as well. So even at our level, we are offering, we're dipping our toe into that. So if we can, if a faculty, a teacher wants to forego their dual credit reimbursement, then we'll help them toward that master's degree. And again, we want to be in parallel because the bulk of our students coming to you that have got dual credit should have the faculty with the same credential. Our trustees have really insisted on that too. So for the most part, and sometimes there's oddities where a teacher doesn't need that master's, but they're few and far between. So we want to be good partners and make sure you're getting exactly the kind of student you expect. We call that concurrent credit, Kevin, and that's the same thing we love to do. It matures a high school student to come onto a campus, act like a college student, know that they are a college student, and we're trying to convince these students that they are college quality and can succeed in it. A lot of them don't come from an environment where that is apparent to them.
Yeah. I mean, we had 2 years ago, we highlighted a student who was graduating from Idaho State University who was from Idaho Falls originally. And she told this story at our scholarship fundraiser. And the story she told was that she hadn't heard the word college till she was a ninth grader in high school. Hadn't heard the word, didn't know what it meant in her family. And
Right.
she only heard it because one of her fellow students, a ninth grader, was talking about going to college. And she had to ask, what's that mean? And to take some of our students from that level of understanding, and she was graduating from us with honors and had been accepted into a doctoral program in neuropsychology in Arizona, and is going to get a PhD in brain sciences. That's what education does for someone. The education betters people's lives, and the more we can work together for what we're offering for the students in the Idaho Falls area and that part of the state, that's why we're here. That's the whole reason we're here, is to do that.
See, I love those stories. When we're working with our foundation or even our trustees, I'd much rather put a student in front of them instead of me run through a bunch of bullet points. So there's nothing better than those exact stories of what education does on behalf of these students. Let me bring up an area that maybe we don't talk about a lot, but I'm envious of what you do at University Place, and it's even better on campus. And that's the work that you do with veterans. And you have got a wonderful veteran coordinator, director there, and that's an area that I, in particular, have an affinity for. And when you're coming back and getting off active duty, it's a hard transition. So there's a lot of reason for veterans to come to Eastern Idaho and take up residence. And I think Idaho State's doing a wonderful job of transitioning them in, helping them with their benefits, and turning out a great baccalaureate who likely could go to work for the lab and cybersecurity. They've got likely a security clearance, which is 18 months worth of work. So reflect for a minute on what you're doing with veterans at University Place.
Well, thanks, Rick. We have now, I honestly can't remember how many years in a row, but I know we just got re-awarded our designation as a veteran-friendly university. Again at Idaho State, and I'm very proud of the fact that we do that. Right. Our office that assists in that is fantastic. And as you also know, Rick, I know you know this, here at the Pocatello campus, Bannock County's Office of Veteran Services is actually located on our campus with our Veteran Services Office. Yeah. So we co-locate that. Another great example of cooperation, to have the Bannock County resources and the university resources in one office on our campus, so veterans have a place to go, one location. But you're right. Many of the programs we have lend themselves perfectly to that student who comes out of the military and is looking for the type of programming, whether it's cybersecurity or some of the other fields that we offer. But the key again is making sure you have an office that understands what are the needs of veterans when they come out of the service, to move them through. And it's everything from the right types of resources to deal with those veterans that are coming out of combat situations and the stresses and that are coming with different personal and family needs than a traditional student right out of high school, or even a transfer student. They just have different needs. And so veterans offices are really paying attention to those needs and saying, here's the resources we need to provide. We want them to be successful, and this is how we move them to help them get their education. And that's so critical. When people ask this question out on the street, when they will say, why do you have so many employees that are non-faculty, that are these staffers that do these things? This is exactly why. Because those are the people who are the experts in the career counseling, in the personal counseling, in navigating the benefit structure of the federal benefits, et cetera, that help these students become successful. That's what they do, and that's what those staff members do, and it's why we have specific staff to deal with one of our many types of special populations. And the veterans are one of our best examples of how we've been successful in that.
I'm going to take a 90-degree turn here for a second, but there are 6 regions in Idaho that we look at from a state board of ed perspective, and each one of those has a career technical, a CTE approach, and I just want you to know I've got facility envy after looking at what you all have done with the Ames Center and the College of Technology, and we're working well with them. And in fact, what we're attempting to do is run in parallel so that as we add new technical programs that we enhance and not step on what's going on in Pocatello, but reflect for a moment on what's going on in technical education. And literally, this is 2 years to a job, not 2 years to 2 years and then a baccalaureate and a job.
Yeah, I'm actually very proud of the fact that Idaho State University has the College of Technology, because I firmly believe that every high school student should go on post-high school for some level of education. Right. It's just required to live that better life, to do those things. But not every student should get a bachelor's degree or graduate degree. There are so many programs, many of them in the College of Technology, which produces in and of itself a wide variety of disciplines. I mean, we have our cybersecurity, as you know, Rick, in our programs, and we have cybersecurity that comes out of our College of Technology. But, we have our program, take just one of many at the technical college, our welding program. Our welding program is full. Every single cohort is full, and graduates and job placement 100% of every one of those students for the last several years, and very good paying jobs in those programs. And across the board on those technical college programs, the job placement rate is over 90% when looked at the whole. And so when one of my first decisions, literally, when I got the position of president, was, are we going to go forward on this major renovation of the Eames complex? Yeah. Well, in the almost 3 years that I've been president, we've now invested over $15 million, and we still have another phase of that to go with the on-site power that's coming next, and turned that Eames complex into a premier professional technical education program that is fantastic. And I have to tell you one of the stories. This is one that I love this story because it's the melding of so many things that I've been talking about since I was president. So when they were putting together the new outline for where the welding booths were going to go, and we because that program is full, we increased the capacity of our welding classes by 50%. So we can produce half as many welders as we used to, and the classes are still full. Well, when we were getting those paint booths designed, or not paint booths, those welding booths, they were all going to come to us, and they were all gray. And no, they weren't gray, they were blue. They were all kind of a basic blue, industrial blue. And one of our staffers in our facilities design department, and she's great. She always thinks of things like this, so I could take no credit for this, but she calls the company that supplies all those paint booths, and they're all blue. And she says, as you're getting ready to manufacture those and ship them out here to be put in the new building, she says, do they come in any other colors? And they said, well, yeah, most people just, want the basic blue one. That's the one that we do. And she goes, I think I could get some of those in orange and in black and in gray. And they're like, well, sure, we'll paint them whatever color you want. So all of our welding paint booths are now in school colors, and they're orange and they're black and they're gray. And it just gives that room an entirely different feel that is school pride. It's school spirit. I am just as proud of every one of our students who come out of that program as any of our baccalaureate or graduate degree students, because they're doing exactly what we're here to do. Get that credential that helps them go better their life and get that job that's going to support them and their family. And then the Eames complex is it's stellar.
It is beautiful. Kevin, that kind of insight from a president, a university president, is really refreshing. And I know the other the other presidents believe the same thing. I wish we could get this kind of discussion in front of our legislators. I think they would. It would really help them understand what the higher ed system, post-secondary system here in Idaho is doing, and how we are just reflecting on what it's ultimately. These are jobs, and how quickly and how inexpensively can we get citizens trained to be productive. So let's talk for a minute about President's Leadership Council. I kind of teed that up a bit, but let's have you talk a little bit about what that is, what it does, and that's kind of unusual in Idaho. It's been a relatively new thing. So kind of reflect on the 8 of us.
Okay, yeah. It's first of all a great group of colleagues, but
yes,
the concept for those who are watching who don't know, President's Leadership Council is the group. The State Board of Education founded it, but we, all of us working together, have changed it a little bit in the last couple of years. We changed its name, and we changed how we do business. But it's all 8 of us. So it's the presidents of all of the 4 four-year institutions and the 4 community colleges, plus the state's career and technical education director and the executive director of the State Board of Education office. And we all come together, we meet monthly, and we talk about the issues where we are all working together. We don't talk about my issues, or we don't talk about just the 4 years of the community college. We talk about how we are all working together. And we came to you, remember this, Rick, about two years ago, we came together to a retreat in the summer. We threw everything out the door of how things have been done in the past. And we said, what if we all worked together for the betterment of educational needs of our students? And how could we do that? And we started re-envisioning how we work together. And that has led to so many changes. I mean, think about it, Rick. 3+ years ago, if the state had received that $1 million for the cybersecurity, what would have been the chances that the community colleges had shared in that in any meaningful way? And yet what we did is we said, how can we do this? And we're all working together, sharing some of those resources to build this statewide program in cybersecurity in a way that it's not being done anywhere else. Because the 8 presidents, because we came together and said, how can we all work on this? And because of that, the program you now have in your Secure Operations Center at College of Eastern Idaho grew out of that. That level of collaboration of all of us working together is, it's going to yield some truly fantastic results as the years move forward.
See, I love that example, and that is a classic example, and you're exactly right. 7 years ago, if funds were earmarked to the universities, it wouldn't have occurred to us community colleges that there could be a component there. But this is a collaborative group, and quite frankly, we've got our SOC up and running, Secure Operations Center. It's up and running. We've got students in it. It worked beautifully. All the community colleges and LCSC will have those. A small component, but this is literally the hands-on training that the technical colleges do. And for a lot of those students, they ought to go on for a baccalaureate. But you could start, it's kind of like pharmacy tech. You can get into those programs pretty easily and earn a little bit of money while nursing's like that too, while you're moving on toward a baccalaureate. So
yeah, and it goes again to that concept of why I love having a College of Technology embedded within the university.
Right.
And to work hand in hand with you and College of Eastern Idaho. I mean, right. Think about the things we're doing at Idaho State University, where we have PhD programs in nuclear engineering, and our partnership with U of I on nuclear engineering and graduate level programming. And at the same time, we are all graduating the personnel that are working in the nuclear industry, that are the technicians, the ones that are out there making the machinery actually work and working on it in a technical manner. Well, the fact that we have the resources where we're teaching everything from theoretical nuclear physics and nuclear engineering down to the people who are working technically in that environment, the more we can combine all that together, you're going to get a symbiotic relationship of that education. And so the more we start developing laboratories like our secure operations centers, where we have the theoretical cybersecurity along with the people that have to be there working the computers, working the systems, putting the control modules in place on these pieces of equipment, the more we create that, we're going to have a synergy of educational programs at what people think of as both ends of the spectrum, from technical to PhD, working together. That's a level of collaboration and cross-disciplinary collaboration that we can actually do here.
That is classic. And again, this goes back to the K-12 experience, and to bring high school, junior high into the Ames Center and walk through there and go, what does a CNC machine do? How does this auto paint booth work? Just giving these young students a vision for the future, and then we're here to help them in whatever direction they'd want to go. One topic for sure you're going to have to reflect on before we go is Idaho National Lab. There are 6 mega projects coming, and we both know what that's going to do to the region as small modular reactors, the cyber mission that it's got, clean energy. Talk for a little bit about what ISU is doing to support INL in these major mega missions.
Yeah, that it's so critical. Between the University of Idaho and Idaho State, and now with CEI also involved in this partnership, we can be the local home institution to help the INL accomplish those goals. And so I've been talking with the leadership of the laboratory about how do we create the relationship where we are a home institution to help out with that, about how we have faculty that are joint appointed. So we have faculty that are teaching part-time at the university for our students and researching part-time at the lab. And therefore, those best practices of the modern research at the lab and the cutting edge technologies are then immediately coming back and being taught in the classroom, so that our graduates then are that much more ready than they would have been to take those jobs. It's this great circle of research, feeding what we do in the classroom, feeding our students who then go out and get that job in industry. It's going to set up this great cycle of how research feeds education that feeds the workforce. So that's the key. And we have to work on those. So our vice president of research and our dean in Idaho Falls, that's exactly their charge that I've given them, is how do we become an integral part of what's going to happen in those projects coming up there.
I hate to say this, we're getting close to out of time. We probably need to do another one of these because we haven't even scratched the surface. But one of the things I like to do with my guests as we end is ask them for a little bit of advice in the area of leadership. So maybe you've got 2 or 3 bits of advice for leaders, and you could share those with us.
Sure, Rick. I actually have a talk that I give to our internal leadership program, where we try to help employees work their way into leadership positions. And I'll give you a couple of things off the top. I have a sort of a top 10 list for leadership, but I'll just go over the first couple. The first one is when it comes to leadership, decisions are made by those who show up. Every single day when you come into work, you get to have a choice. Am I going to show up today? Am I going to be a leader? It doesn't matter where you are in the organization, but when the time comes, are you going to show up? And that's so much a part of it, is being there every day, willing to show up. And then secondly, you either do or you do not have passion for our mission in education. And you can't fake it. You can't fake that level of passion. You either have to have passion that we're here to help students better their lives through education. And you have to have that passion, because you can't fake it. It will show up. And then third, At the end of the day, leaders have to be willing. And I leave it at that. Willing, and sometimes I'll put an ellipses, ... Because the number of things you have to be willing to do, to be a part of, to show up every day, to do these things. Leaders have to be willing. And I always tell the people that I give this talk to, if you don't go home tired at the end of the day, you haven't been a leader that day. Because leadership is a lot of work. It's hard. It's not some easy task. To do it right, if you don't go home at the end of the day tired and exhausted, you haven't been a leader that day. But those are just a few off the top of my head.
Well, Kevin, I'll have to sit down with you privately and get the other 7. But those, those are wonderful. And for both of us, we have organizations that we've got to lead. We have to mentor young leaders, and you kind of have to want to do it. Not everybody wants to lead, but for those that show the interest in it, we've got to be able to do exactly those things. And having that come from the president, I think, is hugely valuable. So thanks for sharing those 3. Is there anything you'd like to close with?
No, not really, Rick. You're right. We covered a lot today, but it felt like we scratched the surface of so many things. We could probably talk for hours.
We could, yeah, and we did just scratch the surface.
Yeah.
So, President Satterlee, thank you so much for being a guest for us. Anybody that had the opportunity to tune in knows you better, clearly understands ISU better, and really the point of this video cast is our relationship, a 2-year, and the relationship with our university partner. So thank you for that.
Okay, well, thanks, Rick. Appreciate you having me on.
So for those of you watching, thank you for spending some time with President Satterlee and I. And I want to wish you a good Friday, and that we're going to have a nice weekend. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on Monday.